I'm Victoria. I'm Vanessa. Yeah, it's okay if you can't tell us apart. I guess we would call it twin engineering. Yeah.
3, 2, 1. Welcome
back.
to our 18th episode of Twin Engineering. Today we have a special guest, Corina. Just to give you a little background of why we created this podcast, it was to be a resource for Latinas and other minorities in engineering, just to give them some advice or different perspectives. So with special guests, we hope to be and provide more information than we can with just me and Victoria. So, like I mentioned, we do have Corina with us today. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me today. My name is Corina Salas. I'm a software engineer at Target for like corporate, and I'm from Cicero, which is only like 15 minutes away from Chicago. And I went to Saint Xavier University, and I majored in computer science, and I minored in communications.
Yay!
Yay.
We're so happy to have you.
We'll do some lows or highs and lows to like start off and be a little more conversational. But we'll start off with the lows first. I forgot mine.
Okay, I'll go first.
Oh, I remember. Okay.
Mine was like a natural disaster, so I remember it. So my low was that there was like tornadoes in my area. So I'm from California. We have earthquakes. I don't know what to do with tornadoes. So I just like went in my bathroom because they say you should go into like an internal room. And then I was like, should I bring my futon in here? Like, what if I have to sleep in here, right? So then I took everything off my futon, started bringing it to my bathroom. And then like it's wider than the door. So I was like, oh my God. So then I had to bring it back. And then I just stood in my bathroom.
Wait, what if you like fold it?
No, like the width is it's
Oh, because the bottom still has
like the legs. Yeah.
Okay, I got it. I pictured it again. Sorry.
Yeah. Anyways. But I survived.
That's good.
Yes.
Milo was that I was supposed to be testing something on Monday for work, and it wasn't working, the whole day. So it was like just me debugging the whatever we were testing. Well, I mean me, because I was like by myself that day. Um, it wasn't a fun day. I was super frustrated. And then the next day, it worked like nothing, and everyone came back. So I was like, okay, well, at least it works now. But yeah.
Yeah, Milo. I'm usually really excited to go to work. Like, well, I work from home, really remote, but I feel like this week was really repetitive. So I'm working on like writing tests for all my code that I've been like writing for the past like 3 months. And I just got bored during work, and it was just so long. Like my work days were really long, and I just felt like very repetitive, and I just got really tired of working. So I think that was Milo.
Yeah. One of the days this week felt like, honestly, it took forever. I was like, please, why is it only like 2 p.m.? I wanted to get out of there. I was like, no. So I feel that. So we'll move on to the highs. Um, I'll start. So I got a free coffee this week. I go to the Ugly Mug in Burbank. It's my favorite coffee place. I like was trying like coffee shops around the area, and now I just only go there now, so I won't be trying anymore anytime soon. So yeah.
For me, my high was oh, my mugs. Sorry. I was like, I said this earlier. So if anyone follows me on TikTok, if you don't, that's okay. Hit the follow button. But I made mugs for some of my friends because they requested it. No, I'm not good or professional, but they asked for it, so I was like, I'll do it. Um, so I finished making them, and then I feel like they turned out pretty well. So they were very happy with them. Um, yep, that was it.
That's awesome that they're like done because I remember when I met you guys in October during Latina
Yeah.
Engineering Week. It was cool that you just mentioned that. I'm like, that's actually like such a personalized gift. I'm like, if my friend gave me that, I would be like, wow, like so beautiful.
You're
I
like,
know
hint.
And, I'm ready for mine.
like, I'll see you in
Better be
October.
good. Yeah. Well, my high, I got cleared to close for the house that I put an offer in. So I'm super excited. I'm supposed to close in a week. So when the day that this podcast releases, I
Mhm.
should be an owner of a house, a lot of responsibility. But you know, anything can happen in a week. So I'm excited to see if it happens, but it should happen, right? But
Yeah,
that's my high of the week.
that's so
Congrats.
exciting.
Yes.
Thanks.
I feel like I've only lived in apartments my whole life, and I'm like, wow, people who own houses, I'm like, good for you. You're amazing.
Yeah, I've never left my parents' house. So I've always, for even for college, I commuted. So this is
Mm,
gonna be like a very drastic change, and I'm moving in with my boyfriend. So it's like not like
mm,
I've never lived on my own. It's always been in this room. Um, so I'm super excited. I feel like I'm gonna be really sad at first, but I'm literally moving away 0.6 miles away from my parents. It's like not even a big deal. I was like crying the other day, and my brother was like, "It's not even a mile," and I'm like, "It's not the same. It's
He's
not the
like,
same."
girl, you're next door. Why are you crying?
Literally, like I could walk there, but baby steps. Maybe my next house will be 10 minutes away, but we'll see.
Yeah.
You gotta start slow. Gotta start
I gotta
slow.
start slow.
Just in case, just in case.
I regret it. No, I'm kidding.
Yes.
So now we'll celebrate at your house whenever
Yes.
we're over there.
Yes.
We'll plan that. So something new that we learned in our current role, or just something new that we tried recently. No specific time frame, but yeah.
I can go first. So
Okay.
we're doing like a new way of testing our front end. It's called Playwright. It's like a automated like AI code generator, and it's like super interesting. I think the way that we're doing it is new, and it's supposed to replace Cypress. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Cypress at all, but it's the way that we do like user interaction testing. So it's like end-to-end testing, but we have AI writing the code. We're just clicking the buttons like what a user would do, and then it would write everything for us. So it's been super cool to see that. I think I had to like read a lot of documentation and be patient, and it got really repetitive. So
Hmm.
that's why I got tired of it. But I think it's cool to see like end-to-end testing being used with AI. So that's something I
Mm.
learned.
Wow, that sounds very cool and smart.
Yeah.
Don't put me there. Good thing you're there.
Um,
Um, oh, go ahead.
you go.
Okay, I think for me, I would say it's more like learning like what to do in like specific situations. Because like, so I work with another engineer with like EMI testing, which is like electromagnetic interference. So we have like a couple tests to run, but like sometimes people, like other teams, want to come to us for like testing, and like they tell us about like their setup and system, and then they're like, oh, so like we don't have this, so like what would we need to do? And sometimes I'm like, what do you mean? Like, can you just bring me the part? So I think, but like obviously the other engineer, like I feel like since he's had like more experience and like more years and like work with the companies, like he knows like what to do. And so I think that's something that I learned like this week. So like I took notes, like in case this situation was to ever happen again. Like in our case, like they didn't have a radio, and they're like, okay, so how do you simulate that, um and then we brought in like some load thing. But yeah, I think hopefully that made sense. But
A little bit. Um, um, for me, like this week was like I was able to travel to Mexico for work, and it was like the first time I like traveled outside of the country, and like I was like, sorry, for work.
Like for
And
yeah, I was like, well, that's
like
not
you're
right.
wrong. Like we live the same life, you're wrong.
I know.
For work, and like where I was specifically like leading the activity, so I had like actual responsibility and it wasn't just like shadowing. So um it like during this time I felt like I knew like what to do and I wasn't like so confused all the time. So it was a new experience of like confidence and like having some structure and knowing what to do, which like I haven't felt that way in a long time. So I was like, this was good. And like I was out of the country. So, and then I like obviously have the ability to speak Spanish where I don't use it every day at work. Because I'm in Ohio. It was like a whole learning experience, but it was good. So I learned a lot this week.
Nice. Um, so yeah, I think that was all three of us. So we'll move on to the episode theme, which is our special guest, Corina. So we'll ask a couple questions and then head to the submitted questions. But
Nice.
would you like to tell us like how you chose software engineering? Like what made you want to pursue that as a career?
Yeah, when I was a sophomore in high school, my English teacher, she was like, I think you should apply for this program. It's called Girls Who Code for their summer immersion program. And I was like, no, it's the summer. Like, what's wrong with you? And she was like, you get a stipend, you get to learn. Like, I was like, no. And then she's kind of like, no, I think you should do it. Like, you're pretty good at math. And I can what's the word, like referral you. So I
Mhm.
was like, okay, I'll just give it a try. Because then she started talking to me like, oh, you could probably like get placed like at Facebook, like Groupon. And at that age you're like not thinking about these companies, but I was like, okay, actually this sounds pretty cool. And then she sent me the website, and then I'm like, wait, I've never like heard about coding or like robotics. Like this was
Yeah.
like a whole like new like world, because like growing up, all I heard was like, oh, maybe you could be like a doctor, a teacher, or like an ultrasound technician or
Mhm.
something else, but nothing like with tech or engineering. So
Mhm.
I did the summer program and actually really liked it. I don't know if I liked coding that much, but I really liked the aspect that like there was like a social justice issue behind it. How like there's not a lot of women in tech, and especially like not a lot Latina women in tech.
Mhm.
And I
Yeah.
think that's the reason why I decided to go into like software engineering or computer science, was kind of more of I want to prove people wrong. And I think that was like the thing, like, oh, like there's no Latinas, like watch, I'm gonna do this.
Yeah.
And when I chose my major in college, I was like the only Latina in my first class. So it was like super like, oh my God, like I thought it was a lie. Like a lot of Latinos go to Saint Xavier. So I'm like, oh, I'm pretty sure I'm gonna meet friends or whatever the case is. And that wasn't like my first semester, I was the only one. And then my second semester, I saw more. So I'm like, oh, like, but it wasn't a lot. It was like two more. And I was like, okay, like, what's going on here? But then I really thought that I was gonna go into like business consulting or like tech consulting, because I
Mhm.
did not know, like school was really hard for me, like university wise, like the curriculum was really hard. I was like, what am I doing? Like maybe I am wrong. Like I maybe I shouldn't be doing that. But I did it, and then that's how I ended up being like a software engineer.
Wow, that's cool. I didn't really learn about software until college.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I think that was like similar for at least for like me and Victoria. Like we did not know like what engineering was, and I'm like, yeah, sure, I'll do that in college. And then it's like, oh, super hard. You feel like you're failing all the time.
All the time. And then like again, like when I was picking like a major, I honestly like wanted to do something else. I was like, oh, maybe I could just do business, or like I'll figure it out. But I'm like, no, computer science. I'm like, whatever, I'll just do it. And then when I was like telling people, like, you obviously like share your senior year, like, oh, what are you gonna major in? I was like, computer science. Everybody was like, why? Like, you're like the least, like like the most random person to choose that. And I'm like, I
Yeah.
did girls who code, and then they're like, okay, I get it.
Yeah, I feel like when people also ask like how we came to choose it, it was like because I like we had a class with like a robot, right? And then I was like, oh, like what major like has robots? And we only like had or like we only knew that we had to choose what major was because we found out that there was different types of engineering. I did not know. I was like, well, like engineering, and they're like, but which one? And I was like, what do you mean by that question? You know? But yeah, so the next question is how your experience has been so far. I know you kind of touched a little bit on like how it was when you like got into like your first classes in college, like your second year, but you can, if you want, go into a little more detail about that, if there's anything else you want to share.
Yeah, I think like I said, like during college it was really hard. I didn't think that I was really gonna become a software engineer. I just think like the school I went to wasn't tech like focused. So I
Mm,
didn't like, really learn a lot. And I got hit with COVID too. So I was a junior and a senior and like nobody was teaching us anything. And it was kind of like, okay, like I'll pass my classes, whatever the case is, but I feel like I had to like learn by myself. The only thing that I was like taught was like how to think like an engineer, and that has helped me a lot though. So I'm
mm,
not gonna like discredit my university experience,
yeah.
but as a professional, it's been a really great experience. I haven't had any bad experiences like other women have. So when I do hear these horror stories, I'm very thankful that I haven't had something like that.
Yeah.
I'm really lucky because I hear more horror stories than good.
Yeah.
So I think Target has like a really good learning environment. And the path that I kind of got placed in Target was very fortunate. So it's been good. And I have like a really great mentor who has helped me so much. And my team that I'm in right now is like phenomenal when it comes to like if I'm comfortable saying I don't know how to do something, they will teach me how to do something.
Yeah, that sorry. That's good to hear because like I've also heard like other stories from like friends, you know, and they're like, hey, where they're at. And I'm just like, oh, like, oh, I wish I could help you, like, you know, like somehow. I mean, you can't, but like, yeah. So kind of like bouncing off of your experience, how did you end up in the role that you did and where you are now? So maybe like how did you find, you know, Target or like no you wanted to go there?
Yeah, so I was actually it's like a really funny story. I was applying for part-time positions at Target at the time. So I really wanted to work um at Target for a reason. I think they're like employee discount. I was like shopping a lot there at the time. And when I was going through like their career posts, I didn't realize it that's when it hit me that every company needs tech people. And I'm
Mm.
like, wait, like let me look at their internships. And in their internships page, there is a women's symposium. It's yeah, literally called the Women's Symposium that they host sophomores going into their junior year, and they get like flown into Minneapolis, and they get woman engineers to talk to like whoever was there. And I applied. So I didn't like really understand what I was like applying for, but I saw a woman in tech and I met all the requirements. And I'm like, okay, I'm gonna just apply. And then I got a call like, hey, do you just want to interview for the women's symposium? It'll be like a quick 10 minutes. And I'm like, oh, I didn't know it was like an interview, but yeah, I'll do it right now. And then I got chosen. And then I didn't know, like, I guess, like I said, I didn't know what I was applying for. And they're like, okay, we're going to book your flight to come to Minneapolis. I was like, oh, okay. Like, let me ask my parents because I think my parents are going to say no. And like, I had to explain to them. And they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, can I just give you a call back like in 10 minutes? And I like called my parents. I'm like, can I go to Minneapolis for like 3 days? And they're like, why, when, why? Like, so many
Yeah.
questions. And I didn't even know how to answer them. But I'm like, it's for school. And they're like, oh, okay, yeah. And then I showed up and it was like it was so much fun. A lot of the women that I met during that like those 3 days, they now still work at Target. So we were all like in the same career path. So it
Hmm.
was cool. So like I met them when I was a sophomore in college and now we're engineers. So it's been super cool to see that too. But actually interviewing for their internship, for like their software engineering internship. So it was the second night that we were there, and I was like, oh, who wants to go to dinner? And they're like, you're not going to study for the interview? And I'm like, what are you guys talking about? And they're like, we're literally all going to interview tomorrow. And I was like, oh my God. I was like, no. So I didn't like prepare at all. And I remember I was like, okay, I'm going to just join their study sessions. And we were all sitting together, and I'm like, okay, I think I kind of like figured something out. But nobody really knew how the interview was going to be, if it was going to be like a board interview or it was just going to be like a one-on-one. But it was like a question that like you had to talk about it, and then you had to write on the whiteboard how you would solve it.
Mm.
So it was really cool that I was able to talk it out. And I get really nervous when I talk about like tech stuff. So I was like talking really, really, really fast. And my interviewer was like, you need to slow down. I'm like, okay. I'm like, I'll slow. But then after that, like a month later, I got the call that like, oh, like I got an offer to be in the part of their internship program. And I was like, yay, like, let's do it. Like I was at the time, applying for a lot of internships, and I was just getting rejection letters while other people were getting like acceptance. So I was like, oh man, like it's not gonna happen for me this year, but maybe next year. So I was like really, really happy about that. But then I got hit with COVID. So I was supposed to like go to the internship that whole summer to Minneapolis, and I was really excited because I'm like, I never have left home. My parents are like letting me go, like this is gonna be like once in a lifetime experience, and I was getting paid good. They were gonna pay for like everything. So then it happened, like COVID happened in March. And then the following week, I don't know if you guys remember, everybody was like posting that all their internships got canceled.
Yeah.
So Amazon got canceled. A lot of people were like BMO canceled. And I'm like, oh, Target's definitely gonna cancel. Like this is it. Like I'm not gonna have work experience in my resume. And they kept it remote, like they made it work. It
Mm.
was still 8 weeks, and it was like super cool. And then I was stuck. I don't want to say stuck, but I got placed with networking, and that was something I never thought I was gonna like be part of. And I learned that I didn't like it. So I'm really happy that I got like placed in a networking team, and I'm like, oh, this is not for me. I think the environment wasn't for me. A lot was happening that year. That's when George Floyd got murdered in Minneapolis. So it was like Minneapolis like based company. A lot of bad conversations were happening between employees. And it was like I was also like a Latina with a bunch of white men. So I was like, oh, this is not,
Yeah.
I'm really thankful that it was also remote for that reason. And then that's when you like got offered, if they recommended you, you would get offered a position for their, I'm blanking, for the TLP program, which is like the technology leadership program.
Mm.
And I got invited back as a full-time TLP. So I was super happy. And then that's how I did my TLP. So a TLP is 2 rotations, it's 6 months each. Um, it's like a full year, and then you get final place, and that's when you become like a real engineer. You're no longer
Mhm.
learning, you're like an L4. And that's how I've been. So my whole journey with tech has been at Target, and it's been like a learning experience. I've learned a lot, and Target has been such a really great environment for me to be an engineer at, especially as
Mhm.
a Latina woman.
Yeah. Well, have you been like, sorry, follow-up question. Have you been like in the same, not in the same role, because I know you went through like a couple different like rotations programs, but I guess like once starting like full time, like has it been like the role name the same? I don't know if that makes sense. Sorry.
Yeah, work-wise, I've always been a front engineer.
Okay.
Like I've always worked in the front end. I
Mhm.
haven't tried back end. I've never wanted to.
Mm.
But like for the TLP program, you get to choose like the teams that you want to be placed in. Actually, you don't choose, you put
Mm.
your top five, and then you kind of go
Oh.
to an expo. But basically like it's like you're an intern, then you're a TLP, which TLP you're basically learning, and then
Yeah.
you become an engineer.
Mm.
And then for your engineering one, it's usually like one of the two teams that you were rotating in.
Yeah. That's
Mhm.
pretty cool.
Yeah.
That was that sounded like a lot, but it sounded pretty
I know
cool.
it's probably like a ramble. I'm so sorry.
No, no, like a lot to experience, but
Yeah.
that's really cool. I remember when we like first met, you're like, "Oh yeah, like I'm a software engineer," and I was like, "Oh wow, like so cool," because I hate software. And then you're like, and I was like, "Oh, like where?" And then you're like Target, and I was like, "Oh my god, I have the red card."
Yeah, and I'm like, that's my team. Yeah. And I'm like, where'd you apply? Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Um, is there oh sorry, Vanessa, were you gonna say something?
No, I think it's like when you were talking about like the interviews and like how, like sometimes that can be like very confusing and like I remember like when I was first like interviewing also, I obviously didn't know like being first gen, I'm like, I don't know what anything like what are they gonna ask me? And then like I did have like someone like an informal mentor or whatever, like I kind of just reached out and asked someone for help for interviewing processes. And then she was like, you can ask them, right? And I was like, what do you mean? And she was like, you can ask them like what they're gonna ask you. And I was like, oh no, I didn't know you could do that.
I didn't know you could do that either.
Yeah, she was like maybe they won't tell you like the exact like question, but you can ask like if it's like a behavioral, like is it a technical interview, like more behavioral, like what type of, so that way like you're prepared. Like if it's, you know, behavioral, you can like prepare more like answers as like how you would react to a situation or formulate your sentences in a different way, or like if it's technical, then you have to go back and like study some problems or whatever. Um, but yeah, that's what helped me when I was like going through interviews and stuff. So if anyone didn't know,
You could ask.
yeah.
Yeah, I remember when I was like going through my first like interviewing practice, like the person I was practicing with had like asked me a question, right? And then I was like, I don't know why, like I'm so unserious. I was like, oh, because like we're pretending, you know? So I was like laughing. I was like, because this is not real. But anyway, so I ended up answering the question. And then she was like giving me feedback. And then she was like basically telling me that like I actually didn't answer the question. And I was just like saying like stuff about it, but like didn't actually answer the question. I was like, okay, and this is why we practice.
Yeah.
But it seems like you did really well, so
Yeah.
good
Somehow.
for you. That I'm happy for you.
Yeah, I think I can like relate to you. I feel like they're like using this term now, but I'm like a certified yapper. So like you ask me a question, I just go ahead and talk, but I don't even know what I'm talking about. And I feel like that was just me answering the last question. I was like, wait, what was the question?
I do that all the time. They're like, can you get to the point? I'm like, yes, sorry. You need all
They're
the
like,
details.
they're like, so yes or no? And I'm like, oh, yeah,
Actually, I don't know.
maybe.
Sorry, what was the question? Um, was there anything else that maybe we didn't like get to talk about or ask you that maybe you wanted to talk about or touch on this episode?
Yeah, I think a lot of the times when I meet women who are studying computer science, they will ask like, "Oh my God, like you make it look so easy. Like you just did your internship and you got your position." And I'm like, "No, it's not that easy. I mean, yeah, you apply, but a lot of the times like I got to experience two different conventions when I was in undergrad, and like they asked like, "Oh, how'd you get to go for free?" Like for example, I went to Grace Hopper completely free. And it's kind of like you just have to ask. And if you say like they tell you no, then it's a no. But a lot of the times like schools, they have like all these budgets for students to go to conferences and you won't know until you ask. So I guess
Mm,
like my point here is that for anyone like looking for something, like just ask and then the worst thing is you're gonna get rejected. And I think that took me a while to kind of just like sink in that that's just the worst that's gonna happen. Someone's gonna tell you no, and then their life moves on and your life moves on. But if I would have never asked to go to Grace Hopper, I would have like never had this beautiful experience that I don't think I could financially afford to go to. And as a student, I was able to go. So that's just
yeah.
something.
Yeah.
Preach.
And I think for like work also, like if there's any like trainings, workshops, whatever, like even if it's like in a different state or something. I mean, obviously depends like how your work schedule is, but
Yeah.
like you can definitely ask to like attend those. Sorry, my mouth. Yeah. Like I attended a workshop in Texas and I wasn't even the one to ask for it, but like my manager thought that like it was something that like I work in, so he thought it would be beneficial to me, so he sent me out there. And so like you can do that too, or like grad school, like they can probably afford to send you if you're thinking about doing that. But
Yeah.
yeah, that's good. I didn't attend any conferences when I was in college, which was I feel like I should have, but I think for that reason, like financially and like just all the logistics, like um those can be kind of like intimidating, I think. But
Yeah.
yeah,
It definitely
that's
takes like a very like different personality to ask for, like especially like money. I think that's like the one thing that's like you see this conference, it's like $500, like, and it's out of state. Like who's gonna pay for that?
Yeah.
Um, yeah, but I also one thing that I like came up to mind was if you're a student, I think a lot of mistakes that engineering students do is that they stick to engineering stuff like clubs, like social activities, and for to build up their resume. But I think that I got a lot of like value from being part of different things that have nothing to do with my major. Um, and I think those are like the best experience for me in undergrad. I feel like as an engineering student, you're always thinking, what's next? Like, I need to get this position. How do I get there? But a lot of the times, like in interviews, you get asked, like, oh, like, what clubs are you part of? And all you say is engineering. You're like, not that interesting. Like, if you say, like, for example, like, oh, I'm part of like a dance club, and they're like, oh, like, that's part of your like personality, like, or you could dance, like, and then they start talking to you about it. So I think like having like that really broad different experiences makes you stand out versus just being like an engineering student. So that's just something else I was like thinking about.
Yeah, because then it also makes you like not that like more human, not that like if you're an engineer, you're not human, but like like you like to do other things, you know? And then it's like if you're also a part of teams, it kind of suggests that you're like a good person to work with, or at least like you can work well with other people. And then also like once you do get an engineering position, like what are you gonna do when you're done with your 9 to 5? You know what I mean? Like it's like definitely a good time to explore like different interests, or like even if you like have had like them in college and then you get your position, like keep exploring those like other things, because it's like there's more to life than just a 9 to 5. And I mean maybe you're like really passionate about engineering, but like you do software for the 9 to 5 and then you do like some mechanical stuff at home. No, but
Yeah.
like definitely branch out and don't just do one thing your whole life. So yeah.
yeah. I think also like it's it kind of like broadens your uh, idea of like different things that you can do as an engineer. Like I
Yeah.
think when you are just in like the major, then you only get like what companies the college of like engineering tells you about. But there's like so much more. Like I remember me and Vanessa were like taking like dance classes. We did dance as a minor. And so like I didn't know like engineers can go to like, other art related companies and like work on things like animatronics or like stage work. And I was like, what? Like that opened a whole new like perspective for
World. Yeah.
me. Yeah, I'm like, or there's like, like video game companies or like companies that just make like board games or like, you know what I mean? Like for learning engineering. So yeah, I think that's a really good thing to remember also. Do different things, guys.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so the submitted questions, I feel like this was kind of touched on. So I'll ask it. But in case there's like anything else you wanted to add, if not, we can, you know, move on. Okay. So, Target isn't the first company you think of when you hear engineering. So how did you go about the job application process and find your job specifically?
Yeah. I mean, like I mentioned, I didn't think about that either. Like I was like, oh, engineering, like everybody would talk about like Amazon, Facebook, and then I started realizing after I did like the Target Women in Symposium, like all these different other companies have these like weekend trips or weekend like leadership programs. Now they're mostly remote, but like all of those like programs that you can do during your undergrad, most of them invite you to apply or like at least have an interview for their summer internship program. And I think we talked about this in person where I was like, my biggest advice to people who are looking for full-time positions is to not go straight to a full-time position and to do like a rotational program because engineering is super hard. And then once imposter syndrome hits you really hard too. So like a lot of emotions are happening right away. So I think being like in a leadership, in a learning position is going to make you a stronger engineer no matter what like, type of engineering that you do. Um, but that's something that I also like talk a lot with students is that think about like what you like. And when I went to Grace Hopper, I remember walking into their career expo and seeing like Ulta, Home Depot. I have to sneeze. Hold on.
You're good.
Okay, hold on. I don't have to sneeze. Home Depot, like Disney. I was like, oh my God, like all these companies. I'm like, well, I don't know why students they could only think about like the big companies such as like Amazon. I'm like, there's all these beautiful companies, and then like I get the discount for Target. So a lot of the times I'm like, you really like Ulta makeup, like you could get like a discount for Ulta if you work for them.
Yeah.
I don't know if that answered the question, but yeah,
Yeah.
I
I mean,
think that definitely like added on. So I
yeah,
think that was good. Um,
Yeah, I
yeah, I was
think like
gonna
with rotational programs, it also like allows you to network with like other departments, and whereas like if you go straight into like a full-time role, I think you mostly interact with like, your team or whoever you see like every day. So yeah, I second that. Rotational programs can be very beneficial.
yeah, and they, a lot of the times like do events for there's like for the people. So I know like I was fully remote, but now for the TLP they do like a happy hours. They do a lot of networking events. So I think being early in your career, you want to meet as many people as you want, like as you need to open, like you said, your network.
Yeah.
yeah, also like outside organizations, but that also becomes a little like hard to do when you're like 9 to 5 and then you're like, I kind of just want to go home now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
I think like for me, like when I was in HSF, and that's how I knew about like opportunities at Honda, because before that I was like, I don't know what I want to do, and all I heard was like Texas Instruments or like like Lawrence Livermore, and like the main companies that our like college kind of told us about, at least the pathway for electrical engineers. And so like when I like Honda like reached out to me, I was like, oh, I didn't even think that direction, like there's just so many ways you can go. And because of like HSF, I was like, I knew about other companies. So I think being involved like in organizations or like clubs that like can give you more opportunities and stuff. I think that's also like how you can find more um paths
Yeah.
after college.
yeah, I think it's funny because like also like my boyfriend works at a company and they do like gated like communities and like like the doors that open close like for apartments or sometimes for like houses. And then I was like, oh yeah, like I guess you kind of do need um electrical stuff for that. So, you know, um and it was funny because like we were walking around one time and then we saw like one of the things from like what are they called? Like little operators, like when you like talk to it and you're like, oh, buzz me in, one of those.
Mm.
Um, like in like real life, and I was like, oh wow, like how do you feel? Like, you're making a difference out here. But like it's like those kinds of things where you like don't think about, but then you're like, yeah, like there's so many ways to apply like your major, like and it's actually like needed in the world. So
Yeah. And I think like in engineering, like you said, like you could align a lot of your interests with your like job
yeah.
prospects. Or like at least that would benefit you. I mean, I don't know, like Vanessa, did you get like a discount for your truck or your car, whatever you have?
They do have it, but like when I first started, they had like shortages, so they're like, oh no. But
You. At least you're the one that didn't get the discount.
but they do have it. But they also have like I think some at least most of like big companies do have like pretty good benefits. And I think that's also a good thing to look for when you apply. Like they like flew me out, gave me like relocation assistance and like they were willing to help me, like find a place to live. And so I think when a company is willing to help you um, you know, set you up to be successful in your role, that's a good sign or a green
Yeah,
flag.
yeah, that's important, definitely.
Thank you everyone for listening, and thank you, Corina, again for joining us on this episode. We really appreciate you taking the time to do this and joining us. To everyone else, our this episode will be up on YouTube, uh, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts on March 22nd. I'm pretty sure I didn't need to say that because it's already going to be released. But stay tuned for our next episode. Oh, and you can also find this episode and any of our other episodes on our website. Feel free to check out anything on there as well.
Bye.
Bye.